Many people only saw the first part of Kanye West's recent interview where he spoke about his faith, he spoke about Kim Kardashian, Black history, and all other things in and between. And the second part was recently released, and I want to give my overall thoughts on the whole interview from a Christian perspective. And although there were many bright spots from a Christian perspective, by the end of today's video, you're going to see that there was a big glaring contradiction in one major thing Kanye West was saying. Now, before we talk about something in part 2 he says about Kim Kardashian, I want to highlight from the beginning that Kanye West isn't perfect. I know in the day and age we live in, it's easy to just be negative. You have to remember, as Christians, let's be gracious and pray and hope for the best in Kanye West's life and other people who he comes in contact with. Now, this first clip from the second part of the interview where Kanye West is talking about Kim Kardashian is actually intriguing. And I'll play the clip right now and pay close attention to what he says.
There's people who might not want Kim Kardashian to become a lawyer because you know what happens when Kim Kardashian becomes a lawyer? That shirt gets a little bit higher, the cleavage gets a little bit more covered up. And it's people that don't want her to affect these women in that way. They want her to affect them in that other way.
Now think about what Kanye West is actually saying there. The Bible teaches us to dress modestly. I spoke about this in a recent video I did about Hailey Bieber. And the fact of the matter is, Kanye West is here highlighting that he wants Kim Kardashian to become a lawyer. And when she becomes a lawyer, she's going to dress a different way, basically. And that may change the image that certain people want to be portrayed to many young women who are growing up. And taking from my last point about speaking up, right? Kanye West is one of those kind of famous Christians who I see speaking up about God so much more often than people we may praise as Christians who rarely mention Jesus whenever they're speaking in public engagements. Just saying. Now, one thing which stood out to me all the way throughout the interview, which is just a snapshot of what it's like for a professing believer in the world, is something we saw throughout the interview was the hosts, the people who were sitting at a table with Kanye, so excited, so eager to see him drink and to smoke and to take part in that sort of lifestyle.
Yeah, so.
As Christians, we're going to be tempted on a day-to-day basis, and you could see the excitement on their faces as Kanye West drank and as he smoked. They were eager for him to do these things and to be basically part of the group. As Christians, you need to be prepared to fight the temptations that will come your way, even in an opportunity where you may be evangelizing to these people. Kanye West spoke about other pressing topics. He spoke about things like abortion. We obviously spoke about Kim Kardashian previously. He spoke about how he's fighting for his marriage. And if that's the truth, then obviously that's a good thing, because obviously Christians should be trying to save marriages, not necessarily break up marriages if it's possible. But certain parts of the interview were just very alarming from a Christian perspective. And these are the main areas where Christians, we need to pray that Kanye West can improve, can really surrender his flesh to allow the Spirit to fully work in him and transform him completely. And we talked about the alcohol and the smoking previously before. It's like throughout the interview, they're taking shots of alcohol, they're smoking, they're doing all these different kind of things which are detrimental on the body. And something like alcohol, for example, the Bible doesn't forbid alcohol contextually, but obviously the Bible does forbid getting drunk, which is something no Christian should be doing. Now, obviously we can't take a breathalyzer test by watching a video, but consuming that amount of alcohol obviously is never necessarily going to be a good thing, is it? Now, going back to this whole wrestle between the flesh and the spirit, right? Let me give you an example. So in the first part of the interview, Kanye West starts praying. And look at what happens next.
Father God, excuse me for saying, but
on top of the smoking and the drinking, one thing which was prevalent all the way throughout part 1 and part 2 of this interview was Kanye West and even everyone around him all swearing as they continue to speak. And he said something about this in part 2 of the interview, which I think we definitely need to discuss.
And let me tell you, I don't want no white Christians come up to me telling me how I shouldn't be cursing and what I should be doing. That's
Kanye West going at people for calling him out for swearing is a problem, because it's not necessarily about a white Christian, a black Christian, or somebody's opinion. If we're going to be followers of God, we need to obviously follow his word. And this is a passage we can look at quite quickly from Colossians chapter 3 verse 8, which talks about filthy communication coming out of our mouths being part of our old nature and something we should be trying to move away from. Now, in this same clip, he also talked about something which, as he says, atheists love to bring up, and he shut it down in a very good way. Listen to what he says.
And also Christianity, there's Egyptian monks from back in 1300s. So when atheists tell us, oh, well, Christianity was thrown at you by the slave, no, it wasn't.
And this is interesting because this was part of a bigger theme in the interview, which related to Hebrew Israelism, right? And all of that stuff. Now, I don't really want to spend too much time on the Hebrew Israelite doctrine in this video. I've got a whole playlist which is ongoing of videos on that particular topic. I'll leave it in the description box below. And it was good to see Kanye West speak about these kind of things because it showcases for many people in that industry who truly believe that Christianity is the white man's religion, for him to highlight examples of Christianity being in black settings, in African settings, way before the African slave trade had actually happened is a good thing, because it really dispels the myth that many atheists try to present and attack Christianity with. And I mentioned this, and we see this all the way throughout both parts of the interview, but I want to play a clip right now, which is always a good thing to see.
I'm trying to tell you, man, Jesus is real, bro.
And these are some of the big spots in the interview because, again, as a Christian, right, I always try to remain balanced to what the word says, and I'll call out many wrong things that Kanye West does, but I also call out good things that Kanye West does. And on top of all of this stuff, right, because at the end of the day, we're just mere men and women. These are examples in interviews like this which are redeemable clearly by God, and these little seeds God will use in people's lives, whether Kanye West's intentions are good or bad. They will be used by God to pull people closer to him. And I said at the start of this video, sadly, Kanye West contradicts himself in this interview, and I'm going to show you a big example of what I'm talking about. But there's many scenarios like this all the way throughout the video, and this is always going to go back to the flesh, spirit, nature. And my prayer is that Kanye West can allow the Holy Spirit to work in his life much more greatly than he's allowing his flesh to work in his life as well. We talked about swearing earlier on in today's video, and this is vital because this is a good example of exactly what I'm talking about. Now listen to what Kanye West says in this part of the interview after saying previously that he doesn't want any Christian, but he's specifically talking about a white Christian, condemning him or talking to him about swearing.
The album came out 2 days late because I took the cursing off, right? Because his families, they just don't need all that cursing in their living room.
He's swearing all the way throughout this interview in millions of people's homes that are listening, but then he turns around and says, look, he took off swearing from his album because people don't need all of that swearing in their living room. Can you see the contradictory nature in what Kanye West is actually doing in this interview? And that leads me to one big thought I had listening to this interview, but especially at the end of the first part of the interview, and that was, imagine if a man like Kanye West was fully sold out for Christ, and he truly allowed the Holy Spirit to work in him and get rid of some of these fleshly things which he's still doing prevalently. And that's why if you're a true Christian, you need to pray for this man. Because you see this all the way throughout the Bible. When influencers, when big people in big places turn to the Lord, it has big positive ramifications on nations. It's interviews like this, honestly, which will have Christians questioning if famous Christians are truly saved. And I show you how to find out if a famous Christian is saved or not in this video right here.